we're using the word back channels. It's everywhere in every story. But this is juxtaposed. We're readying with 300,000 troops on the border of Gaza to launch a ground assault, and yet we are focused on the back channels. What kind of back channel and who's going to be the strongest back channel that can really de-escalate this situation?
Well, the United States is the obvious channel to the Israelis, and it's not a back channel. It's up front. The President of the United States is openly stating what he'd like to see. The question is, who's the back channel to Hamas? There are several candidates. Qatar has traditionally played that role to try and get hostages out. Egypt is the neighbor that has always played a role in crises like this. Turkey is an important player. A lot of the Hamas leadership lives in Turkey. The Turkish President Erdogan has close relations with them. He has been on record to say this is not a terrorist group, this is a resistance group. That gives him the ability to talk to them. We know what's going on in the conversation with the Israelis because it is happening in the open. We know much less about what's going on in the conversation with Hamas. We also don't know whether Hamas is interested in listening to any conversation, back channel or up front.
To the point, Bobby, and good morning to you, Dani here in London, of Egypt. We did have President Biden speaking on 60 Minutes saying that Egypt should be getting more women and children out of the conflict zone. How realistic is it for Egypt to play that humanitarian part in this?
Well, Egypt has traditionally taken the view that they want to help, but they don't want refugees. The argument has been twofold. One is that allowing refugees into Egypt would create a security risk for Egypt itself. And secondly, and this is a view taken by several Arab states, that if Palestinians leave Gaza, then that lets Israel off the hook. If the Palestinians sort of become refugees once again, then Israel is not under any pressure to solve the Palestinian issue. It's a little self-serving from Egypt's point of view, but that has been consistently their view. We'll help, we'll try to send humanitarian aid in, but we don't want Palestinian refugees on our soil. So for President Biden to persuade President Sisi to allow refugees, that's a very, very heavy lift. That Egypt would have to go against decades of their policy.
But then you have the continuation of a nation of Palestinians trapped, and James Cleverly, the UK Foreign Secretary, said it's in Israel's interest to avoid civilian casualties, Palestinian casualties, because Hamas clearly wants to turn this into a wider conflict. So if the conduit out is not via the south into Egypt, as that's contentious, and there are corridors to the north, what is an off-ramp? What can really help the Palestinian people?
Well, this is the tragedy of the Palestinian people. They've got no place to go and nobody wants them, which is why they get stuck in that little strip of Gaza. The doors are supposed to open for foreign nationals to leave Gaza. Hamas has agreed for that to happen. Yep. I worry that we will see a repetition of the scenes, remember, from the airport in Kabul when the United States was pulling out the enormous jam of people trying to get out at the same time. I worry that other Palestinians, those who don't have foreign passports,
just before Dani comes in, just clarify for us what kind of size and scale of numbers could that be that leave Palestine? That's a tiny number, Bobby.
Of the foreigners, yes,
foreigners.
Just scores. But behind them are tens of thousands of Palestinians who want to get out.
And Bobby, I mean, this does speak to sort of the longer term picture, too, of what is the goal? What is the outcome? What happens after a ground invasion? Manus and I were talking about this earlier, that the idea in the U.S. after 9/11, that long term goal wasn't really there. Do you see anything of that sort for what's happening in Gaza right now?
No, not at all. And that is a matter of great concern. Our news colleagues have been reporting over the weekend that this is a concern for the White House as well. The U.S., in its conversations with Israel, is not seeing a plan for what happens afterwards. President Biden has been saying, don't occupy Gaza, don't reoccupy Gaza. And there are some in Israel who are saying that's a bad idea. But right now, I think the blood is up in Israel. And the events of the previous weekend are still very strong. Images and videos that are still emerging from what happened when Hamas launched that terrorist attack. So there's a strong and fierce determination for vengeance among Israelis, which is completely understandable. And in the heat of the moment, as far as we can tell, nobody's thinking of what happens after the troops have entered Gaza and after they have engaged with Hamas in street-to-street battle.
Well, of course, the US has a lot of history to reference itself, from Saddam Hussein, the toppling of Saddam Hussein, and what happened there, and as it were, no clear end game in sight. Biden, it is understood. I mean, Blinken will make a stop off and emerge. He's just done the whirlwind tour of the Middle East.
Yes.
Let's see what comes from that. What does Biden, I don't mean get from going to Israel, but do you think it would be wiser to go before a ground assault by Israel? When is the optimal time for Biden to go? What can be achieved from that?
Well, there are two optimal moments. One is to go before and stop it, if at all that's possible.
Is that reality?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
The second is to wait a little bit until the ground offensive has begun, and then go in and try to sort of persuade Bibi not to go in too hard and to sort of show restraint. It's a difficult call, and I think that's why there's still, the White House doesn't seem 100% certain. They're saying that the president may go in the coming days. We're not yet hearing of a firm date. The president would like to show support to Israel.
Yep.
That's obviously a high priority. But he also needs to show the wider world that the United States can play a role here in trying to minimize the humanitarian catastrophe that is sort of unfolding before our eyes.
Very clearly unfolding before our eyes. Bobby, thank you very much for getting up early this morning. That is Bobby Ghosh of Bloomberg Opinion.